Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Jeff, the guy from Reston. How you doing tonight? Hope everybody's doing well. We're going to do some commentary today. I think one of the things we're going to start with commentary. I started this channel to begin with to talk about men's issues and what's going on. But I think today, because of the emancipation of women and the hypergamous nature of most women and how they behave to this day, that 80% of the women want to come after 20% of the men. And then after all that, then they want even higher status than before. There's only so high that you can go, ladies, and then you're going to have to figure it out that one day, just one day, that look at yourself first. And why don't you fix yourself first before you start fixing somebody else or try to change somebody else that you went after to begin with? That's the first step. Women today have abandoned their traditional roles. So many of us, such as myself, have gone MGTOW. Doesn't mean we won't see women. Doesn't mean I don't even want to get married. I do want to get married, but I don't want to be married to a woman who's so emancipated that basically it's all about her and not about me and the family. And if I don't want to be married to a woman that's so emancipated and so selfish, and I don't want to be with a woman like that for a very good reason. Number one, if I'm working hard to provide and doing my job in my traditional role as a father and husband, then what I expect from the woman is to basically stay home, take care of the children, and then if they do get out of line, then I'm going to throw the discipline book at them. And that's that. You can't do anything else. So that's the way it goes. People today, I think women today are spoiled. I think they're spoiled rotten. I was just listening to a video the other day where, these men wanted to make DNA testing mandatory for all children being born. And the reason why is because there's so many women today that have basically had affairs with other men in their marriages that are supposedly, quote, love, honor, and to cherish each other. And instead, you've gone around behind your husband's back, had an affair with somebody that you met discreetly, and then got pregnant by that person. So what's really honorable, and I think that's why most men today have decided to basically do the MGTOW path. I'm not advocating. MGTOW does not go and advocate for laws to be changed or anything else. It's just saying that until women basically realize what they're doing and why they're doing it, then we're walking away from you. We don't want anything to do with you or be with you. We don't want to do anything at all. All we want to do is be left alone and to basically pursue our goals. And that's what we're looking at. And if women want to turn around and basically try to basically invade the MGTOW space, they can if they want to. They're not going to like what they hear because we're just going to basically tell it to them straight. But that's the reason why I started this video, was to comment on MGTOW and to comment on women. MGTOW are not anti-women. We're not anti-womanhood or anything else like that. We are anti-feminism because modern feminism today doesn't do anything about the rights of women. What it does do is it basically degrades men. And then you hear such terms as, quote, toxic masculinity, things of that nature. And I think that's wrong. And I think that's wrong for anybody and everybody to basically want to just look at people. And just because you happen to be a man and that you're toxic. And, the biggest thing right now is if you're a white man, that is the ultimate right there because, you are really a toxic man. And I think this needs to stop. And I think we need to start coming together as brothers and sisters, no matter what your skin color is. I think skin color is irrelevant into this day and age. I think it's the person that counts, the kind of person you are. And we shouldn't be equating personality or behavior with skin color. I think if it's anything, all skin color should be is a way to identify somebody by appearance, and that's it. It shouldn't mean anything else, and that's all it should be for. So let's get back to this other thing I wanted to talk about, and that was I have been looking to buy a Hyundai Tucson hybrid, not the hybrid plug-in, just the hybrid. I priced one online. I built one online for a little over $33,000. I saw one at a dealership that was coming in for about $34,420. The dealership in Downingtown, Pennsylvania, basically turned around and added a $6,000 markup from the sticker. Now, the sticker price already gives the dealer a $2,700 markup, a profit. Okay. And the dealer's adding another $6,000 to the car. And you know why they're doing this? Because they get away with it. Hyundai should be slapping these people down and saying, no, no, no. We gave you the car at this price. If you want to overcharge the customers, because the customers, we should be calling in to Hyundai and crying and yelling and screaming and letting Hyundai know that we're not going to stand for this. We want to buy a car, but we don't get ripped off in the process, And the only reason why we're having these shortages today is because of who's living at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and all the policies that he set and put in place after he got elected. So that's the reason why you're seeing all these shortages today. Some supermarkets don't have food on the shelves. You go to the drugstore, you can't get your prescriptions. I'm lucky because, number one, I live in a small town. So basically, that kind of mob action where people go in to steal doesn't happen around here. And if it does, basically the police close it down pretty quick. So I'm good on that one. People need to understand something, and that is when you have groups of people that are willing to break the law and you have no way to basically stop them because you have basically nullified law enforcement, then you basically are bringing your own hell to you. And because people are not always going to be like you to obey the law. Most of us want to obey the law. Most of us like living in a free society. And in a free society, you have to have laws in place that you must obey. There's a reason why you can't murder somebody, you can't steal, you can't perjure yourself in court. You can't, you've got to tell the, you've got to do these things. There's a reason why you have these laws on the books. This is a reason why you obey those laws. Basically, if you didn't, an all moral decay, society would just break down. Society is breaking down right now because there are groups of people running around here thinking they can get away with stealing. And what really makes it bad is that you have public officials in cities like in Ferguson and up there in Minnesota where George Floyd was killed, because of that one death by an over exuberant cop. The entire city's got to suffer, and it gives people a green light to go out there and loot and rob and maim and kill. I've seen on dozens of videos posted in Twitter where they see people going in there and killing people, right there in front of camera. And whether they're going to be caught or not, be found guilty for it. One person actually turned around and beat up a 67-year-old guy, stole his car. The groups of them, one guy stole the car. The other guy turned around and took all of his money and then beat him up and left him there on the sidewalk, all injured. Now, I don't know what's going to happen to those people who are going to get caught or found. Probably not. Probably not. And the reason why is because you people up in New York, you pick your own hell. That's all there is to it. So I'm perturbed that you would even allow that. But hey, listen, it's your city. You live the way you want to live. But I'll never go back to New York City ever again. It was a nice place to visit when I was doing when I was working up there for the United Nations General Assembly Conference. When I was there working up there, I was doing one of the security details up there. But now I'll never go back up to New York City ever again. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, you could basically burn down the entire city of Manhattan. Start all over again, if you ask me. But that's my opinion. So let's talk about what's going on in the news. And this is really going to blow your mind. So we'll talk about some things that are very, very interesting. For instance, you know, the Defense Department, and that is Biden's Secretary of Defense. And let me pull up his name here because I should have had it written down. I didn't. Biden's Secretary of Defense. Biden's Secretary of Defense is Lloyd Austin. Now, Lloyd Austin is a commanding general in the Army, and I do not want to take away from anything his accomplishments in the military or anything else like that. But this is what Lloyd Austin's Defense Department is looking like under Joe Biden, and that is basically, while China has fired and tested a hypersonic missile that has traveled completely around the world, Joe Biden's Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, basically has the immediate threat to the United States government is people in the United States military who are basically have conservative values. Those are the people that are the biggest threat to the country. And the fact that basically he's worried about the environmental impact of global warming and how that is a national threat to the United States. When the United States is not the biggest polluter in the world anymore, China is the biggest polluter in the world now. So, and they're a much bigger country than we are. And they put out more, and they've got more air pollution. They don't have the clean standards of air that we have. So here's what Lloyd asked. And then they're also worried about transgenderism in the military. I mean, what the biggest mistake in the world is to be letting people in who basically don't want to correspond to the basic way human beings were designed. There's either a he, there's a she, and that's it. You know, and if you are in between, I would call you an it, because you're neither man nor woman. So if you want to turn around and do the be a transsexual and transition from one sex to the other and be an it in the process, go right ahead. I mean, it's a free country, but you're not going to be in the military. You shouldn't be in the military. It's not what the military is for. The military is not an experimental zoning club. Okay, it's a tight-knit unit of people, and they're there to do one thing, and it's to fight wars and win them. That's the idea for having the military, not to stand around here and basically see how many weird people we can put in there to screw up the unit cohesion of the military. You know. I mean, and why do we have to change for a small segment of the population? I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't like to discriminate against anybody or anything else like that. But if you want to live so different from everybody else that everyone else has to change for you, then maybe you need to look at yourself first and find out really these feelings that you're feeling for yourself to make you want to change your sex. Maybe the fault is not with the world around you, but you yourself. And maybe you need to look at yourself and make an evaluation of yourself. Because if you've had these feelings where you want to be something that you're not, and we've all had those feelings, but most of us don't go and equate it to changing our sex. So there you go. But the thing is, now you've got the media and everybody else on there clapping how brave everybody is for wanting to do stuff like this, which is stupid. I don't want anyone to think otherwise. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm trying to fix my phone here. The screen protector came off of it, and I'm trying to put it back on here, so then I could put it back on here now. See if we can put it back on here now. Okay, there we go. Slide it back in. I think we're good. Here we go. Yeah, I think we're good now. Let's see. Yep, we're good now. Thank you. So that's what's going on, boys and girls. And, I think basically if you actually regard American citizens as some of the American citizens because they hold a different political point of view than you as some kind of a threat, then I think the real threat is actually you as being the threat. I mean, we're all Americans here. We all live to be in America. And some people just don't like America as it is. And they want to change America to something that it's not supposed to be. And the thing is, this is what Hitler did. This is what Stalin did. This is what Lenin did. This is what oh God, what's that guy? Mao over in China did. I mean, this is what all these people did because they didn't like the society they were in, so they wanted to change it. And so since they changed it, they massacred millions of people, millions of their own people. You want to know another society that basically has massacred millions of people, and they've done a far worse job than the communists and the socialists and all these other people, and that is the Muslims. The Muslims, ever since the 6th century, have massacred over 500 million people, and they're still doing it to this day, and they're getting away with it because the leaders of our world are basically limp-wristed. They don't have any backbone. They won't stand up for anything. They want to basically let everyone walk all over them, and people that are from Islamic countries realize this. This is why we're having so many problems with the Taliban and everything else like that. Didn't happen when Trump was in office. Trump closed that crap down quick. Destroyed most of ISIS. And all it takes is 8 months of Joe Biden, and the next thing you know, this country is headed to disaster. The Taliban took over Afghanistan, and here's something else to think about. All those soldiers that died over there fighting the Taliban to begin with, because, after 9/11 happened, September 11, 2001 happened, George W. Bush sent our military over to Afghanistan to fight the Taliban because they were in control of the government. And they allowed our attack to happen. That's the reason why we were sent. That's why we went to Afghanistan to begin with. Now, going to Iraq and taking out Saddam Hussein, well, that was George W. Bush's thing. But as you know now, that they're dealing with Iran or Persia, so they have that problem to deal with. So it's really going to be. But I think actually Persia is going to take over Iraq eventually. And so it's going to be, Persia is going to be all, Persia is all going to be part of Iraq. And that's where it's going to be. And then you're going to have a real problem then, because you're going to have an entire 2 countries that are almost as big as the United States, and with both military powers, because we supplied the Iraqis with man and equipment like we did with Afghanistan. And if you want Iran to get hold of our stuff, so see, these are the things that are going to be happening, and we're not ready for it. We're not ready to fight it. We're not ready, and we're allowing it to happen. Don't you ever realize that when you vote for president, that you need to have somebody that's strong with the military and knows what needs to be done and knows what's going on in current events around the world, instead of basically hiring a bunch of people to clean house in the military because they hold they're Republican and they hold conservative values. Most of the people in the military are Republican or conservative. Very few people are Democrats or liberals. There are liberals. I have met a few that were Democrats and stuff like that. But to turn around and label people in the military as some kind of subversive because they happen to be Republican or conservative, that is just so wrong. And you take an oath to support and defend the Constitution, and you against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. And when your Secretary of Defense wants to turn around and make an enemy of maybe 2/3 of the people in the military, and just like oust them, and then put a bunch of people in there that basically don't know their job, don't know what they're doing, and better yet, don't have the temperament to deal with live combat. You're going to have, and if you think that women are going to pick up the slack on that, just tell you what, I think the average woman does not want to go into combat. The only people that want women to go into combat are the advocates, are the political leaders that say that women can do everything a man can do, and probably so. There are a good number of women out there that could probably do anything and everything a man can do. I'm not knocking it, and I think there's some women that are actually stronger than men, but they're rare. The average woman is about 1/3 the size. Well, I'm going to say that the average woman is actually 1/3 smaller than the average man. I'm 5'7", and I can pick up my mother, and she's 5'4". Now she's very, very heavy. She weighs a lot. She's not 130 pounds. She's about 180 pounds because of all this water weight gain that she's having. But but the thing is, she's smaller than me. Most women in the country today are smaller than the average man. Very few women are very, very tall, or taller, or over 5'7". Very few, and very few men are over 6 feet tall. Mostly, the average guy today is about 5'9", 5'10". That's the average guy. Not everybody's super tall. So I'm sorry for yawning, but I think this is wrong to basically make political enemies out of people in the military and stuff like that, and have political officers to go around and instigate stuff with people in the military, and do that. And military should be promoting people on what you can earn and what you do, rather than preferences, pre-selected preferences. People need to understand that fighting wars is a very dirty business. It's hell. It's hell. It's confusion, and people have killed. I mean, soldiers have killed their own in accident, in accident and action, and they never tried. But people think. And for those of you out there who think that basically if you're going to put a bunch of transgender people on the front lines of a battlefield that take over those, quote, white males who are basically on that front line battlefield and everything else like that are fighting the enemies of your country, well, I guarantee you majority of those, quote, woke people will not be able to hold the line, or won't be able to advance. They won't be even combat ready because of all these gender surgeries. That's the reason why they're having people go in the military and do this transgender, because they want to load up the military with making all these surgeries to change people's sexes and everything else like that, which is wrong. The next thing is they're going to turn around and get all the military to be controlled by drugs and stuff like that. Um, but you're seeing your world fall apart. And if you want to know why, it's because Joe Biden signed a bunch of executive orders right after he was sworn into office. So it was a couple of days later, he was at the White House and he signed a bunch of executive orders. One executive order was to ban the Keystone Pipeline. Another executive order was to basically stop fracking in the country. Another executive order was to turn around and close all the oil leases in America. Another executive order was to turn around and basically, through market forces, basically give a bunch of money to other countries and have them drill for oil in their countries and import it here. So we're back to basically importing oil from the Middle East from a bunch of people who don't like us. You know, we should have just let China take that oil. We've got more than enough oil over here to last for 200 years. Then Joe Biden wants everybody to basically drive battery-powered cars by 2030. Well, that's a nice idea, Joe, and I think, you know, that's a good thing. But to turn around and make half the vehicles on the road are going to be electric powered is ridiculous, because number one, everybody knows there's a ton of oil, and the only reason why we can't get to it is because number one, the government's stopping it from happening because you are in charge of the government, and everybody knows this. And the people who don't know it, that are ignorant and stupid, well, because I just talked to one today. I talked to a girl online today, and she voted for Joe Biden and everything else like that. And, you know, Trump was evil, bad, and she voted for Joe Biden. And I said, well, you know, if we had Donald Trump in the White House today, and I told her, I said, if we had Donald Trump, we wouldn't be going through this mess today right now. You know, people would be back up and working. And these shortages are happening right now because, number one, so many people are out of work. And most people that do want to work can't find a job because businesses aren't hiring people. Even though they say, you know, they want to hire you, they don't. And that's what's going on around you. People need to understand something. And what's really, really important is the fact that people in this country need to wake up. You know, voting Democrat is not going to get you what you need, and all it's going to do is put you in the poorhouse. I said this before, and I'll say it again. I mean, do we have to go through 8 years of Joe Biden for you guys to wake up to get another 4 years of somebody like Donald Trump? I think by now most people don't even want Joe Biden or a Democrat in charge because they know what's coming down the pike. Also, here's another thing. In that $3.5 trillion budget package that all these Democrats want to pass and everything, there's a stipulation in there that allows the government to track your financial accounts. Why? Why does the government need to keep track of you financially? I mean, the only reason why they need to is basically if you're involved in some kind of criminal activity, not to have the government having. So that sounds like control over me. Then the other thing they want to do for control, and this is in the $3.5 trillion budget stimulus, is they have a study done to basically make it so that that they're going to turn around and basically pay you for the miles that you drive. So like if you go out for a drive, you know, say like you want to just go out for an afternoon drive, you want to go down to the park and, you know, enjoy life or whatever, you got to pay tax on the miles that you drive. Not to mention you're already paying gas tax at 18 cents on every dollar. You know, if you got it, and if you have an all-electric car, you're going to be paying even more taxes because they're going to tax all the electricity that's being made. See, when you vote for people like this is what you're going to get. You're going to be controlled, and people just don't like being controlled. We're Americans. Americans do not like to be controlled. We are not a bunch of control freaks. The only thing we like to control is what what is in view of our thing. And I don't want to be paying taxes every time I have to drive somewhere. I think that's ridiculous. You know, they do that over in Europe. But look at the invasion of commerce over in Europe because they're doing things like that. Europe doesn't have the economic is not the economic powerhouse they could be because of this. Number one, they have all these, guidelines. They're paying a ton more for fuel and everything else like that that we're not paying for here in this country. And when the gas taxes first started, Ronald Reagan started the gas tax, and that was to add, what was it, $1 trillion over the next $1 trillion over the next 20 years. And this was back in 1981 when he started for a dime. Then about 5 years later, and then about 4 years later, it went up by a nickel. And then I think it was, it was a nickel. It was like 15 cents. And then I think George W. Bush added another 5 or 6 cents on the gas tax for every dollar. So you're paying 18 cents on every dollar in gasoline. In other words, basically, the government is making more money off of you when you gas up your car than the oil companies are in profit margins. Yeah, the oil company, you know what the profit margin is on gasoline? 1 dime. 10 cents on every dollar. So for every dollar in gasoline you buy from whatever oil company, they're turning around and the oil company is making 10 cents on every dollar. The government is making 18 cents on every dollar. So you want to talk about control, there's control for you right there. And what are they doing with the money? They're turning around and misspending it, spending it on programs that we don't need. We don't want. The only people that want those programs are people that want to keep themselves in perpetuity to stay in power. That's the only reason why they come up with these programs. So that's what's going on, folks. So the border crisis, you have migrants coming in by the millions. The Biden administration is turning around and flying them to different parts in the country and stuff like that to be resettled instead of shipping them back home. So this is what's going on in our country. We're losing our country because we have a political party who is basically inept on getting full control to a one-party state. You know what a one-party state is like? Go live in the state of Maryland. I mean, you want to keep voting Democrat, this is where you're going to be. And then there's going to be no opposition. The press is always in the corner. They're always going to vilify people to own guns and things of that nature. They want to turn around here. There was a shooting at the Park City Mall over here, and it was a 16-year-old kid that basically bought a gun and shot this 18-year-old other kid that was 18 years old that was probably harassing him or something like that. And then he actually shot somebody else in the process, and a woman they shot her, and he wasn't shooting her, but he shot her by accident because he didn't know anything about guns. So then a 50-year-old guy with a concealed carry permit had his gun in the mall. He turned around and shot the kid, and turned around and held the kid, and didn't kill him, but shot him, told him to put the gun down, and probably shot him, and then basically held them there till the police arrived. Right. And that's problem. And now the news media is making a big deal out of this and everything else, like, well, guns are evil and all this other stuff. And I'm like, going, look, if you want to stand around here and justify lawlessness and everything else like that, go ahead and justify lawlessness, because that's all you're doing. You're not turning around. And basically you're vilifying anybody that basically steps in and tries to stop it. What really irritates me more than anything else is the fact that, when people try to do the right thing, they get stomped on from above. Like the Salahis in Missouri, who basically had their gun confiscated after they used them to defend themselves from a mob of people that broke into their home, onto their property, broke down the gate, came onto their property, and then the guy got his AR-15 out, and the wife had a little 38 revolver, and they stood there with a 38 revolver, and those people basically left. And then after all this happened, no shots were fired or anything. Nobody got hurt, but the state of Missouri comes in, the clerk of the circuit court comes in, and she puts a criminal case against them. And I think the governor turned around and I think pardoned them or whatever. But now that's on their record now, and all they did was try to defend themselves. So we're in a topsy-turvy world right now because you have these leftists who are in charge of this country, and it's going to get worse, and it's going to keep getting worse until enough people feel enough pain. Just like under Obama, when enough people feel enough pain, then they'll go the other way. But people have to feel enough pain, and that's what's going to go on. So this is what's going to happen. So unless people wake up, and I think people are waking up and stuff like that, because right now, then they have this other thing right now where they've got you got one letter from one school board writing to the Attorney General's office to start investigations on parents speaking out against school boards. What kind of crap is that? You have young people going into drugstores and other things, stealing property, and nobody's arresting them. But you get somebody who stands up in front of a school board who is basically nothing more than a bunch of leftists, and turns around and does all these great things, pushing critical race theory, white vilification, turning around and like white people are responsible for the reason why black people are in so piss poor condition. No, it has nothing to do with that at all. It has to do with lifestyle and your choices that you make. If you want to live irresponsibly, and that's it. Majority of people who are black live irresponsibly. That's the reason why. You have to live responsibly. You have to live with just spending a little bit of money rather than a lot of money. You have to basically curtail your spending. Save your money. That's what you're supposed to do. So anyways, it's 37 minutes and 38 seconds. I think I'm signing off. It's almost midnight. I want to go to bed. I'm tired. My eyelids are drooping. So anyways, y'all take care. Have a good night. This is Jeff from Reston signing off. Jeff, the guy from Reston, signing off. Take care and good night.